And behind the wall. Oh, we're going. Good evening. Welcome to Chaska City Council meeting for Monday, February 5th. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. Nice to see a big crowd out here tonight. Nate, call roll, please.
Yes. Councilmember Schultz? Here. Councilmember Bowe? Councilmember Bowe?
That's you.
Councilmember Rowe? Councilmember Rowe's not here. And Councilmember Geisler?
Yeah.
That was the hard part.
And Mayor Winchell.
You got it? No, you're
We're getting
struggling a
through
little
this.
bit here. 5 people, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Tough one, huh?
We're gonna
I don't
need
know what's
name
going on
plaques in
today.
here. Councilmember Rowe is out of state, so he will not be joining us tonight. Moves us to item 4, adopting the agenda. Are there corrections or additions to the agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Bowe.
I'll second that.
Second by Councilmember Geisler to adopt the agenda. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries. Moves us on to visitor presentation. And I have a list. I apologize to the people that are gonna have to maybe sit through a little bit more than planned, but we canceled our last meeting due to weather and some other circumstances. So we have a lot of people here tonight, and we try not to get so many, but we'll just get through it really quickly here. So tonight, the first one on my list, we have Senator Dr. Jensen here to share some information with us. Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Winchell. I appreciate it. And council members, thank you very much. I'll keep this very short. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to serve. I would love to tell you that the work we do down there is efficient and similar to the way you function, but it's not. We're terribly inefficient. We're excessively partisan. And I think that I occasionally hear the question, should we have partisanship affect our city council elections and school board elections? And I said, are you crazy? Don't you get enough of this bickering on the federal and the state level by watching TV? No, we actually need in the state legislature to learn how to operate like you folks do. You do a lot of hard work and you get a lot done. So thank you for that. This month's Minnesota City's Journal, you might have seen it, headline article, Protecting Local Authority. I couldn't agree more. The closer we get it to the people, the better off we are. The better everybody will perform and the people will have been heard. I just want to say thank you again, and I really appreciate when you contact me. Several of you have. And, your perspectives give shape to my perspective. Oftentimes, you're far more knowledgeable than I am about a given issue. Certainly, I went into this Senate thing because I thought I could help maybe in the area of healthcare, and I'm trying. And obviously, you can't go in just a vacuum, so you have to learn all the other issues too. And it does seem like a little bit of an uphill slog at times. So please feel free to reach out to me on anything particular in regards to city council issues. You're a very robust group in terms of what you're taking on. You've got lots of development projects. I have a personal interest in what's going on Angler and 212, and I just want to say thank you again for your expedient decision making and just the general flavor of support and encouragement that you've given to all of us. So thank you. With that, Mayor Winchell, I'll stand for any questions, but I know you have a strong agenda tonight.
Appreciate that. The only thing that it's that the opioid crisis, and I was with Pastor Joel at that event. We were at the Bart Starr awards presentation, and he was talking that he's got a group that's kind of started talking about that. Is that something that and I don't know if he's reached out to you. He said I should talk to Dr. Jensen about that, but he said he had a little group that started about some of the opioid concerns and he kind of asked if we're doing anything with that, and I said, that's such a big topic. I don't know where we could even get involved with that at this point.
I could read you the text I just sent to Representative Nash about an hour ago. There's a lot of initiatives going on in this regard, and I did chair the Senate Select Committee on Health Consumer Affordability and Access. And one of the things we talked about was the opiate issue. I mentioned to Jim Nash, I said, if I were you, I would just keep conversing because there's going to be a lot of things hitting the press in the next 3 weeks. There's a lot of ideas. We oftentimes break down opiate prescriptions into morphine units. So like a Percocet tablet would typically be 5 morphine units, and we may tax each one of those. There's another initiative out there where we tax each prescription. That's one way, because we need to get some money from the drug companies that are making so much money to help fund the reparative process that we need to do. As a family doc, I have to confess, I initially felt a little dinged up and a little nicked up because a lot of the focus has been, well, you know, it's the docs that have been starting these people on the medication that ultimately led them down the road. And I understand that we did have some responsibility, but it seemed like they were looking for someone to throw under the bus. But as I've studied this issue over the last year, I have to tell you, I've been a little humbled. I read a lot of articles, and I think as physicians, I think we've played a broader role than we might have realized. I think it was just too easy to write out 100 Percocet when really 40 would have done. And we're not very good about helping patients when patients have leftover opiates in their household and tell them what to do. They come in and they say, well, what should I do with them, doc? Well, you know, just keep them in your medicine cabinet. You know, we should have been saying, bring them back in. We will work with your local pharmacies. We should be doing things like that. I specifically have a bill that I want to stop the practice of physicians taking over an opiate prescription that someone else started because they think they're doing them a favor. The classic example, I had my knee replaced in 2012. The classic example is you get your surgery done, and for the first 4 to 6 weeks, you will use some narcotic support to help you with the pain. That just is going to happen. But what happens is after 6 or 8 weeks, generally the orthopedic surgeon will tell the patient, no, we don't do narcotics after the first 8 weeks. You know, that's what we do. So you just call your family doc and they'll take over for you. And like nutheads, we've been doing it. And we've been doing it without having the patient come in and having an assessment. And so we just sort of thought we were doing everybody a favor, and we weren't. And so all of a sudden, 3 more months passed, and the surgeon has no idea that the person with a knee replacement is still using narcotics. And they should be the ones prescribing it, because that usage of narcotics should be weighing in on their assessment of how well has this surgery done. Should I be thinking about doing further physical therapy or whatever? But the bottom line is the notion of physicians taking over someone else's opiate prescription is wrong. And my bill is basically going to say, if you're going to do it, you've got to assess the patient within 7 days. You cannot take over prescribing an opiate without having sat down with the patient, talked about the risk, examined them, made sure they don't have liver trouble, and that's what. So to your point, Mayor Winchell, I'm going to be so disappointed if we close out this session in May without having done something. And yet that's what I'm being told, that it's very likely that there might be enough partisan bickering that at the end of May we may end up with no bonding bill and no particular legislation passed. So I don't know what to say, but I'm certainly pushing this one hard. And my brother committed suicide quite a few years ago, and it wasn't specifically related to narcotics, but it was related to substance abuse. And so it's near and dear to my heart too. And as a family doc, I hate to say that we've been playing a role in it, but we have. And so we got to do better too. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your candidness on that, because that's a tough one. I mean, and it's just a battle that's out there, and we think we're sheltered from it out here, but we're not.
We're not.
We're not sheltered
It's
at
here.
all, and
No.
it's just something I've been really, I know that, like I said, you've been working on that, so appreciate all your efforts. You're thanking us, but you're doing it at a far bigger level than, we're handling our local government, and you're working on that next step, so.
400 physicians in America can commit suicide every year, 400 physicians, and a good share of those are with narcotics. Thank you so much, and thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Thank
Stay
you.
in
Real
touch.
quick note of thanks for last year for the interchange.
Oh, yes.
That,
Yes.
Senator Jetson helped us a ton on getting that done with Joe Hoppy, so thank you.
Wow, the truth be told, Mayor Winchell told me if it didn't get through, he wasn't going to allow any development up on Engler.
That was our secret. There's something wrong with that?
Thank you so much.
Hey,
Your
look,
building's
we're
looking
both
good,
winners.
too.
We're both winners. What better of a way? Thank you, appreciate you being
Thanks,
here.
Senator.
Next on our is recognition of commissioner members. Jean, Tom, I don't see Tanya. Judy, will you come on up, just come on up to the podium? I just, and this is something new that you guys get to be the first guinea pigs on. But it's really something
You got your
that.
dance ready?
But it's something I don't think we do. You guys, I think you've all, Judy might be leaving a little bit early, but I think you've all finished your term limits. And but it's something that I don't know that a lot of people really realize, that all of a sudden you're gone and nobody says anything to you. And we kind of wanted to make this effort to say thank you to you guys for what you do, because it's really important. I don't think everybody really understands that, you know, park boards and the planning commissions and the human rights commissions, that they're such a valuable piece for us, because you take care of a lot of that stuff that we would be here for hours and hours and hours to do, that it is so greatly appreciated. And we have, it's not much, but nonetheless, it's something. But we have a certificate for, so basically it's to Jean, Tom, and Judy. You all have your own, obviously. In recognition for your outstanding contributions to our community in your years of service on the Planning Commission, Park Commission, and Human Rights Commission, presented on this 5th day of February 2018. And I will come out and give you these.
They are suitable for framing, so.
Or not.
I know how these certificates work, so, I got Jean on top. Jean, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate all your efforts. Tom? Thank you, sir. Appreciate everything. I knew that'd be on. And to Miss Judy.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything. So I just want to, again, so that this will be more of the norm, but we can get up here and say thank you before you just walk off in the sunset.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mayor, I also want to add, I did get a message from Tanya Kim today, and she just had a work commitment. She wasn't able to make it, but she did want to pass on that she did really appreciate the invite here and the honor of
Good.
serving. So wanted to pass that on for her.
Awesome. And we'll get that certificate to her.
Funny thing is, I remember when they all started. It doesn't seem like that long ago. Yeah.
What does that tell you about you?
I don't know.
I can
More
tell
than I
you.
want to know.
All right. Next on my list, I have the American Legion, a salute across America with Steve, Michelle, and Victoria.
Bringing my entourage.
Absolutely.
Mayor, council members, how you doing? Chris, it's been a pleasure. I haven't seen you in 30 years, man. Nice to see you again.
For those who are not aware, actually, Commander Nacelle and I actually went to the same high school together. He was a year ahead of me, graduated a year ahead
Wow.
of me, and along with his brother Danny as well. And so we've known each other actually for quite a while.
Small world, isn't it?
I didn't even know he was here
Come
until I
around.
talked to Matt earlier, and
I said, he said you went to a roast bar. I said, do you know Chris Schultz? Chris Schultz?
good thing, okay?
He owes me 10 now.
I'll tell you some other stuff later.
Okay.
Yeah, does he owe you money?
No, he's
A beer.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Now
The
I
reason,
owe him money.
yeah, he is
Thought you already paid for that.
bit of a trouble child, but no, okay.
Aren't we all?
Anyway, I appreciate it, and it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Steve Nacelle. I'm currently the commander at the American Legion. I've seen a few, Mayor, I've met you, and a few others. Thank you very much. What we want to do is, we've got this project that's going across the United States right now. It started in the East Coast, and I'm going to have Vicki Bont here. She's my #1 fan, okay, right now. So she's going to give you a little brief history on it right after I tell you what the program is about. I won't take up as much, I'll just take as little time as possible here, because there's a lot of information that this can come through. Basically what it is the Troop Banner Project Program, and this salutes our current military members that are serving at this time and who have served, including the deceased. And we can go back as far as you need to go, as far as somebody presenting a picture is what they do. And the family gives us the picture, we download it on the system, they give us the information on the particular veteran. And in other states right now, not specific Minnesota yet, but they post them on like the utility poles and such like that. But after talking to a few people, I found that the parks might even be the better idea for this one. And basically what it is rather than hanging a flag, you're actually having a picture of the veteran himself or herself on both sides, and they would utilize the brackets that we currently have in the parks that you can slide it in, which she has an example of here. Hold that up. Yeah.
That's very nice.
That one is the one that the Legion would hold on to. And the cool thing about this is if this is approved and we're able to hang these up around town, specifically in the parks, let's say, they can be geocached by, like, if the Boy Scouts wanted to do a project, the community would be aware of our veterans that have served and who are still serving here in Chaska. And anybody in the United States can look up, let's say they wanted to look up me, for example, my wife wants to post one for me. So we'll post it out there, let's say, and somebody wants to do a project from school. Then they'd be able to go on to this program, which I have on my phone. If you guys want to take a look at this later, that's fine. And you go down there and it'll come up with a map, and it actually satellites where that particular person is located. And if you click on that person, it'll download all the information that the family's given you on that particular veteran. And they can do a school project on it. They can do, just about whatever they need to do for this project. It promotes, our freedom, and it honors our veterans, and we have a lot of veterans here in Chaska. In fact, I'd like to see some of you in the Legion once in a while. Okay? So, but anyway, I'm going to let Vicki give you a little history on it real quick. Should only take a couple minutes, and then if you have any questions after that, please feel free to ask. But you all have copies of the program here, I believe.
Yes, in our package.
Should be in your packet. And if you have any questions out of your packet, please feel free to ask. But I'm a strong believer in this program. We'd also be the first one in Minnesota to promote this program, and the 10th state that would be utilizing this program if we did it. Now, we've already got people from the VFW that are looking at this. Richard, the commander there, and the commander in Chanhassen has already started asking questions about this program here. So, but we would be responsible for it. We'd only need help from, as far as hanging up the signs. We would hold the signs. They would go up from Memorial Day to Labor Day. They'd be taken down. So that's from May to September, right there. Okay? And I'm going to turn it over to Vicki.
Where was that in our packet?
Hi.
Oh, I got it.
Just found it.
Again, we thank you for your time. I got into this project when I went home to Pennsylvania to see my family's reunion, and I had 2 uncles in Vietnam, and theirs were being put up with a number of others in this county, and it was very stirring. One of my uncles has passed, and to see my one uncle come from Bermuda, where he went out of the Navy, and he saw it for the first time. And his wife was particularly proud. So I said, hey, I got to do something about this. I wrote an article. I used to write for Chaska here, and then I just retired, and sometimes I put stuff in the Gazette. And after that, the first person to contact me was Steve. And so I've kind of been their resource. The program started when this couple that had a computer, and as it says in the packet, they did something for a young man who died on his 3rd tour of duty, 2 times in Iraq, went back to Afghanistan, died in the 2nd week he was there. And his father was a police chief in a place known as Castle Shannon. And his dad hung the banner in the front of the station. And from there, people saw it, and it spread like wildfire. People said, hey, do it for us. And now there's a route in western Pennsylvania, Route 88, 22 miles of that in the summertime through many cities have these banners. And there's over 10,000 of them now in the United States. There are 14 states, so there's 5 that are in process. We're one of them, but we're the furthest along. So we need approval to be number 10. And I think here's the thing that I know about this. This puts you with an actual face of somebody that served or fought to continue to keep America free. It has a bigger impact on young people. I've met someone that went and served because they saw this, they were wondering what to do with their lives. I've met people that, okay, there's a program starting in Michigan where I taught when I first was a young person. I went to a reunion, and I met someone I worked with. His son died in Afghanistan. He said, I don't want a rock memorial. I don't want a computer memorial. This is what makes it real. This is what I can say, there's my son. I now take care of his children. And every day I can say, that's my son. And I can say to his kids, there's your dad. So this is what makes it really real to me. And this is why I'm putting it out there. If you have any questions, we've become the experts. Thus far. So, yeah, and we can customize the size with the company so that we can use the poles that are already in the park. And they're two-sided, and people can stop and look at them. And we're looking at Veterans Park, Town Square,
On Fireman's Park?
Fireman's Park, yeah. And our goal is to get that ringed in Town Square by Memorial Day.
And if this grows any faster, and later on down the road, it doesn't mean that we can't also represent firemen, police officers, things like that.
There you go.
On the road there.
Yep.
Currently, the states that are involved in this, can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Oklahoma, New Jersey, Maryland, West Virginia, Ohio, Alabama, Pennsylvania, New York, and North Carolina. That's 9. People that are in the developing mode are Florida, Georgia, and South California. If we were to approve this, if you guys were to approve this, Minnesota would be the number 10, and Chaska would be the first city to ever do this.
And it's gotten national exposure. It's been on nightly news. You can go on the website. And the website's very simple. It's www.troopbanners.com.
Yep.
Is that website in here,
Yes.
I believe so, yes,
Yeah.
sir.
in our packet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a couple more benefits.
Banners.com, yep.
Yeah, you got park visitation. You know, people coming in the park, you might get more business in the park. People looking for things and see that, they might stop and check that person out. It's got a web-based app, which you'll see on the, it should be in the packet that you have. And like I said, they can scout projects, like a geocache, or do anything like that for a particular project. Student information, that's out there. That's a big one for education, so.
And they go all the way back to the Civil War. I have a great-great-grandfather, 3 times great, Civil War, hanging up in Pennsylvania. So,
Is it your idea to put Chaska people first and then maybe Carver County or whoever,
they do hometown, so it's just Chaska.
so it'd be just Chaska? Okay.
That's the way the program works.
Doesn't mean we can't spread that far later, but, I
Right.
mean, if we get this started, then, you know, absolutely, we'll spread it to Waconia and, you know,
Is it,
the rest of the county.
and is it designed for just deceased or anybody that served?
It can be anybody. Living too, because they can adjust it immediately because of the website. All the information is stored, it can be adjusted. And so if you do it now, I saw a really great thing on the website where a vet came home and he had been awarded, what is it when you've been wounded?
Purple Heart.
Purple Heart. He actually went back into battle, came home, and when he finished his whole tour and everything of duty, they adjusted the flag, so.
So, and it's all adjustable as well, so I should put it.
Oh.
It gets a lot of publicity. It's great.
Absolutely.
So now I see in your report that you've talked to our utilities director, Toby.
Yeah, before his,
So actually, I talked with Andrew today.
Yeah.
He's our assistant electric director. He was trying to get in contact with you. He's going to be contacting you to sort of follow up on it, because I know Steve and I talked about this a couple weeks ago.
And I did talk to Andrew.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So it's something that we'd like to put something together with with them to bring back and have something that you guys can formally act on.
And the,
And just for you guys' information, in this mode, we can't act on it. We
Right.
can't do anything here. This is strictly informational, and then it would have to come back at another, where it actually becomes an agenda.
Oh, absolutely.
a really big concern too is that the city of Pittsburgh had a really long debate over it before they okayed it, is they didn't want to just have a whole tidal wave of organizations suddenly wanting to use the polls. And not that there aren't worthy organizations, but they said, they debated in their final resolution was because the military is a branch of the government. They felt okay okaying them, and they came up with the legal document that they'll see at the end of your packet that allowed them, the military organizations, to do this.
Yes. So it can be adjusted that way.
Yeah, and it also gives you the legal criteria of why and what they said. And they allow other organizations to copy this freely and work from it. And so that's what many of these other states, municipalities have done, is use this. So that saves you guys probably a lot of thought and time about that.
Any other questions?
What is the cost to the city?
It's not gonna cost the city anything other than them putting up the, you know, putting
And
the frames.
there are brackets already designed to hold these then, is that correct?
These are pretty similar to the banners that we have for other streetlight poles, so we don't see a technical issue with it.
But are they gonna hang with don't ours now go in like a post?
No, these would be like the,
The banners on
these
the
would be
golf
like the
ones
banners
downtown,
under, yeah.
okay.
Okay.
They'd be custom designed to fit our banners. We'd work with the city to make sure that they would work exactly like the banners that are used.
So you can just slide them right in, and that would be it.
They're laid out like the Ryder Cup banners, things
Okay,
like that.
okay.
How are you funded? I don't,
The family is the one who pays for everything with
Sort of like
this.
buying a brick at a
Yeah.
memorial.
okay.
Same thing. And on top of that, since we'll be controlling or running it and along with the city, some of the money and proceeds that we do collect from the families is gonna go back into the city, you know, as far as donations to, you know, worthy causes and things like that. Not much, but some,
There's a straight breakdown. It's 70 for the large banner,
yeah.
and then the 10 for the banner the family gets, which is the small banner.
$70, that's it?
That's it.
70 for this.
Wow.
It's
We'll
all
get to that in a minute.
nonprofit. They
Seems
do
pretty
this
reasonable, doesn't it?
nonprofit.
Yeah, they don't make a dime off this except the printing companies.
It's 10 for what the family gets.
Yeah.
And that's for their yard or for the cemetery. And then they charge $5 to mail it. And then what they give for the profit for, or the donation to the organization doing it is 15.
So it'd be a straight $100 per family. That's it.
Wow, that's pretty reasonable.
Yep.
They want it to be done.
I think it's a neat project. I really do. You know, I guess the biggest logistics is the legality of hanging them on the poles and just what you talked about, you know, do you open the door up and.
Well, to me, it's more of a policy issue, is
Right.
to talk about, you know, because obviously, I mean, that's always the first concern when you have is, you know, how do you make sure that you're fair to everybody? I do think that there's just obviously distinguishment here, but that's probably part of what we do as part of this, is to define a policy for hanging banners too, so that, you know, if it's not the city, what are the criteria that we use?
Yeah.
We don't have a policy at this time.
Well,
All
that's
right,
always
anyone
also
else have-
means-
Now, you said there's an app that those could geocache and find a banner and
Yeah, they-
search on a.
Yeah, there's I can email you the website.
Well,
so-
I guess I was kind of curious, some of the comments made, you know, that you could locate a service member and then from their banner, and then it would even show you where they are.
Yeah.
Meaning, like.
Well,
the banner
that
is?
would be like a
live or
scout
where the-
project.
I'm sorry?
That'd be like a scout project.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you mean by where they are? Where the banner is
Where the
located,
banner is
or
as
where
compared
the- where
to
they
the
actually
grocery
are,
store
where they
downtown.
live?
Eventually, they'll get them where they're actually located.
Okay.
But then they'll go by city first.
Okay.
So it'll be, the satellite image will come down to the city area where they're located at.
To sh-
On
What do you,
the- on
what,
this- in
when
other
you
words,
say
what-
they, are you referring to they as in the banner or the actual person?
The actual person who's looking at it. from the
it will show
website.
the person where they're at.
Correct.
Okay.
And then it'll list.
I think you're showing
yeah.
someone a map of
Stalker.
this person of where he lives. I'm like,
Give you an
aren't we
example,
infringing
Chris.
on
Say, let's
privacy.
say you're in California.
Right.
And you want to look up somebody here in Chaska that, long lost relative or something. And you can just punch in that, on that website, you punch in, there's 2 spaces there, it tells you, it brings up a list of all the people that are actually in the system already. And you just press on that particular person, hit next, and it'll automatically go to where that person is located. And it'll bring up all the information on that particular veteran.
It's already in the website. You can
Yeah.
always go to the website and find them alphabetically.
But where that person is located, it's more so where the banner is.
Banners
Right.
located.
Right.
The banner.
Banner is located.
So that's like a scout project or
Sure.
a high school project. And they take all the information, like if you have a history class and they do research on that person that's more in depth, or that battle, or the ship that's listed, or the medal, then once that's confirmed, let's say by the teacher, that also goes in the site. It's a huge historical reference that's in that site too.
And it
And
just builds.
also, the other question I have is, why the time frame from Memorial to Labor Day? We do a lot of banners, but, typically there's a pretty limited length of time that, we
You can
utilize
change it.
these.
We're just giving you what most places do.
Yeah.
Okay, just out of curiosity, if there
Part
was
of it
a
might be-
driving force or
Well-
reason why those specific dates.
My particular, I think the reason is in my own personal opinion, they do it since it's a federal holiday towards, Memorial Day for, for vets, and then they ended on Labor Day for, winter coming along. However, it doesn't mean that we can't extend that, like, if the city wants to.
Some places just do it from Memorial Day to 4th of July because you guys have Chaska days and so on.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
and you can even, and if you guys decided to change those days, that's obviously up to you guys, so,
We're just
Probably
abide by
a
whatever,
bigger
you know.
discussion.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Who decides on if they need replacing, if they fade or
Ah,
get destroyed? And
Good question.
since 2009, some of these banners have been up from that time period. They're made of nylon, and they have been very, very sturdy. Little fading and little bit of fringing, and so they're very sturdy. But what's a lot of cities do is move them around from sunny to shady spots to help that. But from 2009 to now, so they're pretty sturdy.
that poor satellite will get confused if you start doing that.
That's why,
You won't
that's
know where
why
to go.
we're thinking of putting a chip in them, so they can be found easier.
There you go.
Yeah, so that would be confusing, wouldn't it? Have to get a whole new group of Eagle Scouts to find them. So that's a very good question.
So for those that have been up since 2009, then I take it, is it a fairly,
This is
where
when
they're
the
placed
program's
is replete, is repeated every year then?
They're
in other
putting them up
cities
every
where
year.
it's-
Mhm.
Well, it's, Commander Nacelle has a banner and we put them on the corner of, I don't know, pick a street here, Walnut and Fourth. And so, in next year, we put them up on the same corner, or, is it something where
A
you?
lot of cities
how does that-
move them because of the fading now.
Okay, all right,
Because this is, almost been,
But you're not
10
talking about 9-10 years.
yeah.
sure.
You know,
No,
Yeah.
I was just wondering if it was,
Yeah.
if
So that-
they were consistently hung in the same location year after year, or,
No, it's-
because then that location service as well kind of impacts that.
So that's why they're talking about chipping them
Chipping, yeah.
right in them, yeah.
Make it-
So if you're searching for someone with a really common name, do you have to know other things like their military ID number? Or how do you find Fred Smith when there's 10,000 Fred Smiths out
Well,
there?
actually, it is an alphabetical order by last name when you bring
Okay.
up the list. So, but it does tell you on their rank
Oh,
and
okay.
where they were located.
So there are some details there.
So there are
Okay.
some details.
And their
for you.
hometown.
And their
Okay.
hometown.
They're all by
Perfect.
hometown.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good question, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Any other questions?
Exciting.
Yeah, it is, it's very
I think
exciting.
it's a very interesting project.
Especially with our Veterans Park
Yes, ma'am.
getting
Yeah.
done this year. I'm excited to see that.
Pleasantly surprised at the cost, too. It's
Yeah.
minimal
And we
considering the
we
quantity.
store them.
Okay.
So,
Oh, perfect.
until they're ready to be picked up again, and we just take them up and ready to go. So,
Wonderful.
And they can be cleaned with a baby wipe.
yep,
Ah,
Oh, baby.
a baby wipe.
So,
That's fabulous, good, because they do
At
get
no
dusty,
charge.
I'm sure, so.
And those birds seem to find a way.
awesome. Well,
What a great
thank you
project.
very much. It's a great, looks like a great deal. I think we'll just let staff kind of run with it here and come up with kind of that.
Well, we appreciate you allowing this time today for us
Yeah.
and such.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Appreciate
bet.
it.
One last thing.
Oh, she got one.
I got one. They told us that, like, if we can get in by the end of March and we have like 100, then probably we can get them back in time for Memorial Day.
Oh, okay,
So that's just the last caveat.
yep.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. I know we weren't as exciting as the Super Bowl, but you'll do
I don't know.
this.
Super Bowl's gone, those will
gone.
stay here.
That's right.
Actually, I
Bowl's in the rearview mirror now.
I had a guy actually the manager at Walgreens today actually told me, he goes, "Happy post-Super Bowl day." I was
Oh,
like,
man.
"Oh." But anyway, thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. God bless you all.
Great project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I show one more, is there anybody here representing Beyond Yellow Ribbon? Okay. You hear from Mark?
That's unusual.
We'll find out.
All right, is there anyone else for visitor presentation? Okay. We will move to approving the minutes of the January 8th council meeting. Corrections or additions, if not, I'd entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Bo,
Second.
second by Councilmember Schultz to approve the minutes of the January 8th council meeting. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Moves us on to consent agenda, which are items that need our approval, but not necessary conversation, but we can be talked about. Anyone discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent
Motion by,
agenda.
motion by Councilmember Schultz,
I'll second that.
second by Councilmember Geisler to approve the consent agenda. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Moves on to item number 8, which is the public hearing, Wellhead Protection Part 2, adoption number 2018-11, authorizing submittal of Chaska's Wellhead Protection Plan for final review and approval by the Minnesota Department of Health.
Mayor and council, one of the requirements that we have as a city is to come up with a plan for how to protect our wells. And our water and sewer director, Matt Hafner, is here. Has been working with Stantec on putting together this plan. One of the requirements is that we have a public hearing before we submit this into the state. So they'll be here to, or they're here to present the plan as put together and then take any public comments. I'll turn it over to Matt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Appreciate you having us. This is Mark Janovic from Stantec. I've been working with Mark since I think it was 2014 is when we started the process with updating our wellhead protection plan. And I'll let Mark go through. He's got an exhibit here that will help explain kind of the area that we're talking about and concerned with and the wells inside that area. So.
See if we can maybe show the whole map.
Master.
Okay, that sounds good. I also do have copies of this map at the table if anyone wants to have a hard copy to look at. Good evening, Mayor and council members. As was already mentioned, the Well Protection Program is designed to protect the city's public water supply wells. It's required for all public water suppliers in the state of Minnesota that operate drinking water wells. The city's already done a well protection plans 10 years ago, so you're required to do the updates every 10 years, so this is your first update. Basically what this map shows, the well protection, actually I should say, well protection is mandated by the EPA on a federal level, and it is in the state of Minnesota. It's operated by the Minnesota Department of Health, or overseen by the Minnesota Department of Health, so that's who the agency is that we're reporting to on this. Basically on this map, what we see here, the city has 2 well fields. There's 5 wells in this central well field area, and then there's a 6th well up here, well number 7. So those are the wells that supply the city's drinking water supply. Now, one thing we have to do as part of the process is determine where is the capture zone for these wells? Where are the wells getting their water from? So that's what this blue line shows for these 5 wells. This is a 10-year capture zone. So any water within the aquifer will be pulled in by these wells within 10 years. This black line is the management areas. These are all the parcels that you have to manage as part of the wetland protection plan. And there's 2 areas, and here's the other area for well 7. This is much longer just because it's a shallower aquifer and the water moves much quicker through that shallower aquifer. So that's why you get this really long snake-like capture zone, whereas this is more circular or oval in shape.
Just to give you a quick sense of where all these wells are, so almost all of our wells are right around our municipal service building, except for well 7 is the one that's right behind Cub Foods, right by Hazeltine.
So one thing we had to do as part of the update is look at any changes in how you use your water or how many wells you have, and you didn't really have many changes at all from what you had 10 years ago. Just a little change in how much volume you pump. And the other thing we have to look at is how vulnerable is the aquifer within these management areas. Now, around your 5 wells here, it's all considered low vulnerability because you have enough geologic protection between the aquifer and the land surface that there's enough clay or shale that would prevent any contaminants from rapidly infiltrating down to the aquifer. So that's actually really good news for the city.
Can never get through Chaska clay.
That clay, it's everywhere.
That's good. Well number 7, since it is much more shallow, is considered moderately vulnerable. There is still some protective layers there, but it's not quite as thick as it is to the other wells in the south. So a little bit more effort is involved with managing a moderately vulnerable area. Now for the Part 2 Wetland Protection Plan, what we did was look at what are the potential sources of contamination within these areas that could impact your wells. Well, since you have so much clay, most of the things that the land service shouldn't impact the water quality in those wells. However, one thing we look at are other wells that penetrate that clay layer, because those can be direct avenues for contaminants to reach the aquifer. So as part of the process, we inventoried how many wells are out there. We found roughly, I think there was 50 wells within that management area that we know of for sure. There will be some efforts in the future to find if there's any others out there. And the main management strategy is to determine, well, how can we determine, are those wells actually being used? Because if they're not being used, state well code requires that they be sealed.
So you're saying these are private parties that have a well?
Most of them are, yes. The 50 wells also include some city wells too, and even the 6 wells here. So 50 wells total within those both areas. So state well code requires that any wells that are not being used have to be sealed. And it's actually to an advantage that if they're in a wetland protection area because grant money is available to help seal those wells. So in the past, that grant money wasn't available, so there was some resistance from landowners to seal their wells because they didn't have the money to do so. But now that that grant money is available, it's much more advantageous to work with the city to help seal the wells. So that's the main focus moving forward for the next 10 years. The management plan is to try to find those wells, and if they are being unused, help the landowners seal it. So the next part of the process is to send this plan into the Department of Health for their final review and approval. And I believe that's up for approval tonight. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to help answer.
I know some people like to have their wells so that they can, water when the city says, odd even kind of, there's different reasons why someone wants to keep a well. How do you persuade or how strong is the ability to cause someone to have to abandon their well?
Well, if they are using their well, then they're not required to seal it. So even if it's in a wetland protection area, they're not required to seal it.
Okay. And how often does it have to be used for it to be used versus not used?
That's a good question. I would say if it doesn't get used within a year, it's not being considered active.
Okay.
We went through and passed an ordinance a while back that prohibited well drilling in our service area, and so we do not allow any new drilling, but we allow
The microphone, please.
we do not allow any new drilling of wells, but we will allow them they're kind of grandfather in
Okay.
their existing wells and utilize them until, it fails or whatever. So,
Okay.
and I believe, working with the county, they have grant dollars as well for those homeowners if they do have private wells. So I think between the county and the state, a good portion of the wells sealing can get paid for, so.
How far back can you obtain information as far as wells that have already been drilled many years ago, let's say?
There's a
before?
well index map that shows
Okay.
basically the majority of the reported wells.
If the wells were drilled before the mid-1970s, then they may not be in the database. That's when the well code kind of was enacted. So a lot of the wells from the 60s and 50s and before aren't in the inventory, but they do sometimes get picked up over time as they get inspected and located. They get added to the inventory. There may be wells out there beyond the 50-week inventory that just need to be discovered. So.
I know that's an issue with farms as they develop. If there's a well there and you don't know about it, it's direct access down into the aquifer, so you want to find them and abandon them properly.
And one aspect of the plan is to actually contact known well owners, and even if they're not going to seal their wells, if they don't need to seal them, is to give them some give them some educational materials on how they can manage their own wells, because this not only protects the city wells, it also helps protect their own wells and their own water supplies. So it's to everyone's benefit to work together on this plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're here to, if there's any public comment, to entertain those questions, and then we will be, if there are no comments, we will submit to the Department of Health for approval.
You're comfortable with what we got here then? I mean, you're kind of the,
Yep, we've been working on it a while.
Good guy.
Yeah.
because that's all way over my head stuff. That's why we have you here.
Okay.
All right, so any questions up here before
Thanks,
I
gentlemen.
open the public hearing?
Nope.
Not this time?
All right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll open the public hearing at 7:47. And is there anyone out there that would like to speak on behalf of the Wellhead Protection Plan?
Mike Benson told me he wanted
I
to.
was thinking, he's itching. I see him rocking. I didn't know if he was gonna come up here. All right, last call. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:48. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to adopt.
Make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Bo,
I'll second that.
second by Councilmember Geisler to adopt resolution number 2018-11, authorizing the submittal of the Chaska Wellhead Protection Plan for review by the Minnesota Department of Health.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Send her in. Thanks. All right, moves us to, moving to item number 9, adopt resolution 2018-01, approving the concept plan for Aldi, Chipotle, Starbucks in the Hazeltine Gates Plaza.
Mayor and Councilmember, the item in front of you tonight, it's actually, if you think back to, I was just looking at the dates, 2005 to 2007 timeframe when Hazeltine Plaza first started to develop. We have Kohl's and dental office, McDonald's that are in there. The area that we're talking about here is really that corner that is up in the northwest corner of that development area. And we now have a proposal for Aldi grocery store, Chipotle restaurant, and a Starbucks store to really fill up that area. This is an item that has gone through the Planning Commission, and Liz is here to talk a little bit about that discussion and talk about the recommendation. We are recommending approval of the concept plan as it's presented.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. We're looking at a concept plan tonight. So to give you a visual of the area that Matt was talking about, the site is located in the Hazeltine Plaza's development, specifically in the northwest portion of that overall development. So today you see kind of a vacant lot encompassing that area. So tonight we're looking at that entire northwest vacant lot there. So I'm just going to dive right into it. This is the concept plan that was put together for the 3 different establishments. They are proposed to be on 3 separate lots as they move through the process. Aldi will be totaling at 23,000 square feet roughly. Chipotle's looking at a 2,300 square foot building footprint, and then Starbucks is just a little under that with 2,200 square feet. Plus, they'll have a drive-through that kind of wraps around the building. There is a private drive that dissects the Hazeltine Plaza area today, and that's going to be the primary point of access to the site. There's going to be 3 different points of access into the site from that private drive. So one to the north, in the middle, and to the south to access another smaller employee parking lot and loading dock for Aldi. They will be sharing the parking lot that you see on the site plan there. There's a total of 133 parking spaces to accommodate all 3 of those uses. They have given us kind of a preliminary analysis of how that all is going to work, and based on kind of the peak hour times of all these establishments, it appears that it will work. In the event that they need overflow parking, there is a reciprocal easement agreement that is in place in Hazeltine Plaza for them to utilize if needed. So that would be the parking lot or parking spots outside of the subject site in the Kohl's general area. Both Starbucks and Chipotle will be having patios on the exterior for their customers. We've just mentioned kind of some alternative options in terms of placement for those, specifically with Chipotle, looking at locating their patio in the rear to kind of take advantage of the mature shade trees back there. With the preliminary coming up, we'll kind of work through kind of the reorientation of that.
Where's Starbucks looking?
For their outdoor patio, right in the front there. And really, that's kind of the only option they have in terms of placement. As you see out there today, there are a couple retaining walls on the north and west sides of the site, and they're there purposefully to protect those large oak trees that are out there. That was a part of the original approvals, to save those trees, and those were put in place to further protect them. They will be making some slight modifications to the location of those retaining walls. However, they have already engaged a arborist to look at that and have given them clearance to do the modification. So they're basically following the guidance of the arborist in terms of where they're modifying the retaining walls. So that's kind of the general direction for that. They are going to be locating in a planned commercial development district. This area is already zoned for retail uses, so what they're proposing in there meets the intent and overall uses that are allowed out there.
Is this proposal kind of similar to what was kind of at the very beginning?
A little bit. I mean, in terms of the retail component, yes, it's very consistent with that. It's just the difference in kind of building orientation and layout of the site. Because the retaining walls that are out there today kind of showed how it was initially going to be laid out, but since times have changed and the market has changed, we're seeing a different layout than what was previously approved in 2005.
At the time, it was designed more as sort of like almost like a
Lifestyle
plaza sidewalk
center.
area that with buildings going sort of linear up towards the
a strip
corner.
mall.
Sort of a
Yeah.
strip mall component. The market's just not driving for that type of stuff now.
No, I was just curious, because I was not around when this was originally plotted, and I was just curious if it, if it's pretty close.
Another kind of item that we brought up during this concept plan was the intent in the PCD 15 district is to provide for a pedestrian-friendly retail center. So really capitalizing on that pedestrian-friendly element out there. So we've noted some opportunities where they can really enhance on that piece of this zoning district, where they can provide for further pedestrian connections into the systems that already exist out there. So we've noted kind of 3 different areas, one being connecting out to the Highway 41 public trail from the sidewalks that are in interior. Another one was showing some intersecting connection between the Aldi and Chipotle and Starbucks sites to really kind of provide for a safe thoroughfare for anyone crossing the parking lot there. And then a third one being connecting into the Starbucks site through the internal system.
Can you back up there,
Yep.
Louis, please? Why you kind of have, it looks like an H there, why wouldn't you just make one passage?
It's one.
Oh.
It's either or.
Oh, okay.
It's very hard to tell in this image.
It's a lot of wasted parking
Right.
spaces that,
No, we just saw a couple different opportunities there that could potentially happen, so just wanted to highlight both. And we just,
As it's a concept, we're just trying to point out ideas.
no, I get it.
right.
And I'm gonna throw one other at you, is there a thought about, and I don't even know if it's necessary, because it's not really a city street, but would you put a crosswalk, like say, if someone's at Kohl's, wants to walk over to Starbucks, or, you know, do you put a crosswalk there when you're talking about the pedestrian-friendly
Right.
thing?
And they have existing pedestrian connections there today. So there's very faint lines shown here how it can connect into this site, so showing that continuation throughout.
I wasn't sure what they were meaning, but I would think if there was any gonna be a walk traffic, it'd be like from Kohl's to go over and have lunch, and or employees, and, or people just leaving to walk over on a nice day and
Right.
whatever.
So in terms of kind of what they're proposing for their exterior design, they've just provided some photos of all the different establishments in terms of kind of their traditional look. So Aldi has kind of a natural stone, brick, eaves type of exterior. Chipotle has more of a contemporary, cleaner look composed of eaves, metal paneling, glass. Starbucks is kind of along the brick, natural stone, wood paneling type of route. So we just stress the importance of meeting our building design and materials ordinance, which requires a certain amount of Class 1 materials. And in addition to that, since this is a overall development, to show some consistency between the different establishments in terms of their overall design, whether that be similar elements, similar building materials, could be a difference of things in terms of how they get that done. But since they are a part of an overall development, that will be important as they come through the preliminary.
Well, the Starbucks and the Aldi's, like, you know, I can see it, but the Chipotle seems to be really out there. I mean, are they gonna tie in some of that, some elements of, and I know we're in the concept here.
Right. I mean, that's the intent out here, is to show some general consistency. Obviously, we want them to have their own branding and personality for these buildings, but to show some general cohesiveness between these three buildings as well as with the Kohl's and other existing buildings in
An
them.
example of that is the Bank Vista, which was recently built. A lot of the materials used on that building, they pulled from the adjacent area, but it kind of has its own identity. Sure. And the same thing, you know, not to exactly replicate anything out there, but use some of the same materials so it feels cohesive. But you can still have your own identity. We understand corporate architecture and all of those pieces are important and valuable to the success of these businesses, but also some nod to fitting in that general piece. And the example would be that Bank Vista, which I think did a really nice job of using existing materials from that neighborhood, but also having its own identity as well.
So to kind of wrap up kind of the main points or the things to kind of look into as they move forward with the preliminary is, again, capitalizing on the intent of this zoning district, which is to make it pedestrian-friendly, and then showing consistency between the buildings that are in this development, even with the existing, and then further evaluating their parking needs and how those are all going to operate together. So in conclusion, we feel like they're at a very good step in the concept plan submittal, and the details are able to be worked out as we get through preliminary and final. So we are asking you to make a motion to adopt resolution number 2018-09, which is approving the concept plan for Aldi, Chipotle, and Starbucks in Hazeltine Plaza, based on the conditions that are listed within that. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, the applicants are here tonight as well if you have specific questions for them.
I would just say, I remember when it came before the Planning Commission way back when, and this parcel, I'm glad to see that the Planning Commission addressed the Oaks, because I remember that was a big thing way back when. So that's good.
So is there, I know Mr. Benson's here, but is there somebody here from Aldi's? Is there a concern? I guess my concern is there's one here, there's one in Laconia, there's one in Shakopee, there's one in, I think proposing one in Chan. Is there an overkill? Is there a concern? I don't know if there's anybody here that can address that. You'd have to come up to the mic though, so we could hear you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Ryan Anderson. I'm the civil engineer on the project, representing Aldi, Chipotle, Starbucks, and Toll Development. Trent with Toll was unable to make it tonight with the meeting being rescheduled, but I'm happy to answer all your questions and go through this project with you. I just want to give a quick thank you to Liz and city staff. We first met with them, I want to say, probably about 9 months ago now on this project. We sat down, kicked around some ideas, told them what we were looking for. They gave us good direction on what had been previously approved as well as what they'd like to see moving forwards. And working through the beginning of this project, we feel very confident in what we are delivering is going to be something that makes all three of our clients happy, as well as a good overall product to the city as well. Anyways, at this concept stage, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, I'm just here to get any feedback you guys might have for us.
I'll give you some feedback that we've heard from Aldi Concepts is that they are a smaller footprint. And so they draw from a much smaller market area than the bigger stores do. And they tend to like to be close to bigger stores because they can pick up some of the secondary market there. But they do have a much smaller service radius than a bigger grocery store.
Like I said, I guess my concern is like we're three of, I'll just say four right here, and actually could be 3 or 5 with Eden Prairie. That, you know, I just hate to see us build a building that maybe will be struggling. But like I said, apparently they feel the market's good, but it's a question that gets asked here constantly. Is like there's one here, there's one here, there's one there, and that's really my drive. Is you know. So that's basically the reason I asked the question, you know, is it, you hate to build something and worry that it's going to be successful, but if that's what they're basing
We can
on,
also have them provide some additional information during the preliminary as well. It kind of talks a little bit about that. One of the things that we had brought up during the Planning Commission was, you'll remember from the retail and restaurant study that we did, where they talked about how much leakage, which is how much money from Chaska residents are being spent elsewhere. Almost every category of retail there was, we were performing below what we would expect for a community of our size, which means people are going outside of the community to shop more than comparable cities, and which means that there is a market here.
Lack of choices.
And I think that's one of the things I think they're seeing and trying to exploit is figuring out how to pull some of those dollars that might be going elsewhere back into the community, as well as providing choices in the community. Because it is certainly a different grocery store than Cub or Target or Cooper's or even Hy-Vee. I mean, they're all very different from one another in terms of what they're providing to the community.
Okay.
and I'm good with that. Like I said, I was looking for more of a general explanation, you know, and plus it helps me if that seems to be the question you get asked. You know,
right.
How many grocery stores do you need?
Well, that's the question people ask, is how many grocery stores. The one thing that I found sort of interesting when, you know, that the market study we did showed a shortage on grocery stores in particular, but the other thing to consider is that there's when you think about where Hy-Vee's gonna go and you think about where these stores are, there's sort of a different market out on the Engler Boulevard site, because you're picking up a lot of Victoria and Waconia to the west of where people are, because there aren't, until you get to Waconia, there really isn't another grocery store out in that direction. And so we're not only picking up now some of the leakage that we've seen from our own residents going to other communities for grocery shopping, but we're also sort of picking up some of that from the west too.
Very true.
Like I said, I'm sure they've done their market analysis, or they wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind,
Very
so,
good.
but I just kind of needed to hear that, so thank you. I don't know, anyone else have any questions regarding it? Like I said, I know it's early in the plans, and I saw from reading our minutes is seems to be some concern about the drive-through for the coffee, for the Starbucks, and again, I'm gonna go back to, and this is kind of Kevin's line, is that I'm sure they've looked at the fact that they know how many people they need in line, and there's certainly the last thing they want is they don't want a long line, but they don't want traffic blocking up either, so I'm sure that they know, because I think I counted, there's like 7 cars that you can get within your line, and,
That was one of the items that we had asked them to address during the preliminary, was to talk more about that, just so that we had some information, because each of these uses are so different in terms of how people queue up, how long it takes to get your product, and how quickly
peak hours are different.
And peak hours are different, and every site's a little bit different, and so I know that was one of the pieces that, during the preliminary, we were going to explore a little further with the applicants.
Awesome. Well, good up here.
Very good.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, I thought from the original concept, there was more, I suppose there's a reason why buildings are laid out the way they are here. It just seems having Starbucks and Chipotle right next to each other, and all of this parking off to the west versus, having more parking in between the two buildings where it's more accessible for both to utilize, would be better use. I look at things like where the semi back-in is for Aldi's on that west side as well versus, I don't know, I suppose there's probably pros and cons on having it on either side of the building, but, as I look at it on the west side, wondering what kind of views
Screening,
that and screening are
And we
gonna be
did
involved
talk
there.
about that in our conditions of things that they need to address as we move forward, and that, the screening on that loading area is one of them, because obviously, that can be done well, and
Well,
It
Target's
can be done poorly as
it
well.
can be done. poorly.
Target's sort of a good example where the loading is on that east or west side of the building, but you'd never know it because you can't see it.
Nope. And so, at a concept level, we're not saying it's a fatal flaw, but that's something we want them to address. And so I certainly hear, I think one of the other things they're trying to deal with also is some of the requirements of Kohl's, because Kohl's has, I think, certain view shed requirements that they have as well in terms of trying to be seen out there, that they're trying to make everybody happy.
And how would that address? kind of
It
the
doesn't
building
address
layout?
it just addresses how the buildings are laid out on the site, not necessarily why you couldn't put this one here or, flip the loading dock or not flip it. But it is a consideration that I know they needed to make sure that they were addressing, was that Kohl's does have some say on what happens.
And that very northwest corner, what is that?
It's really behind that sign. That's the trash, and I think that was another piece that they were asked, also by the entranceway. There's another one of how you can look at those and make sure that, that they're just placed in an appropriate spot. I think here, we're just, from a concept level, this is a lot of detail. And we appreciate seeing it, and providing feedback in terms of, saying, you've got a spot for it, now let's make sure it's in the right location. There's a placeholder out there for trash, and make sure that we've got them in the right spot, just kind of like the outdoor patio area where we talked about with Chipotle, can add shift up and be associated more with the trees and things like that. We know that there's a space for it, and that's great, and can we explore where's the best spot for it as we move forward. And so with this, they were showing us all the placeholders, the parking, all the pieces that we really need to know that it can work, but now how do we optimize it from there?
Sure.
Yeah, 'cause
And
it's
you've
kind of
already
like, oh,
You've already looked at like refuse containers and roll-offs and all that type of thing being shielded from sight?
And as we get into the preliminary, we'll be digging much deeper into
Onto those things?
into those things.
No
Figuratively.
pun intended.
I just don't want to get into the same situation again where, well, you approve the concept plan and, you know, things don't vary
Yeah.
much from,
One to the next, right?
right.
Yeah, there were, as you can see from the conditions, a whole series of things that the planning commission gave them some general direction on, and things they gave them more specific direction on that they needed to work on. And so, we're hopeful that, you know, we think they're going in the right direction, and we think these are really good uses for the community. That, you know, it'd be nice to have some more restaurants, and if there's a need for more groceries, as there would appear to be, that this provides a new option and can fit into the community well. And we're excited about that.
All right. Thanks.
well, nickel and dime this, but I was thinking if you took that Chipotle and took it to the west and even turned it, and then the patio would, this patio would actually sit right in that grass. And then the store would face out, what I'd say, toward Hazeltine Boulevard.
Toward east,
I mean, that, like I say, we usually don't get into this, but it just seems like it would utilize it and break up the parking lot a little bit.
Yep,
But
I hear you.
And it would also
and
move
I
the
don't-
drive-through away from that
Yeah.
busier road.
And if I can comment on this
Sure.
quickly, I would just like to say, yes, we're open to, you know, suggestions and obviously improving our concept to meet you guys' needs. But I would like to just say that with this site, with the uniqueness of the retaining walls, the shape of the property, and then the restrictions with Kohl's and the overall development, what you are seeing here is a concept that's been thought out thoroughly and multiple iterations to get to this point. I believe this is, you know, maybe the 15th, almost 20th concept with some different businesses, different shapes, different layouts. So as we're certainly still open to suggestions and change, this is, you know, this has been well thought out and isn't just, you know, 3 buildings thrown on a piece of property to without us, you know, putting a lot of thought into it. So.
I can certainly appreciate that. I'm just thinking that maybe some more thought needs to go.
Okay. Yeah, it just
Right.
seems like it would work, but I don't know. What do I know?
We'll ask the question.
Yeah, sounds good.
Perfect.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else got any questions? Everybody good? Okay. With that, I'll turn it out to, what's your thoughts?
Well, as I stated, it's a concept plan. and,
Yep.
I feel, and obviously the planning commission feels that there's still some more work to be done, that there's some improvements that could be made yet. Of course, you know, those improvements are always a matter of opinion, but there's no reason why we can't continue to move forward and continue to work the situation.
Agreed.
Yep.
All right, someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2018-09.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Geisler,
I'll second that.
second by Councilmember Bo to, again, adopting 2018-09, approving a concept plan for Aldi, Chipotle, and Starbucks at Hazeltine Plaza. Discussion. I think we pretty well took care of that. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Good to see you, Mr. Benson. Moves us to item 10, adopting resolution 2018-13, accepting the feasibility report for the 2018 street reconstruction.
Engineers do that all the time.
We'll have Liz help.
What do you do now?
I don't know, but I think he's really nervous.
Engineer.
Came up there before and fixed everything, and then he comes up here and destroys it.
Mayor and Councilor, as he's pulling this up, the item in front of us tonight is our proposal for our 2018 street reconstruction project for the downtown. As you're probably fully aware after going through this for the last 7 years or so, we're in about a 10-year plan for basically rebuilding all of our downtown city streets. At this point, it's amazing how much we've got done. I'd say we probably have 60 to 70% of the streets in downtown completed now. We have about 3 more years of big projects left to go, and Matt's here to talk about the feasibility study and what's being proposed for this summer and why, and talk about the schedule for what we're looking at.
Mayor and City Council, Matt Clark, Chaska engineer. Thank you for having me. Again, as Matt had said, tonight's discussion is on the feasibility study for the streets that are shown in red that have been selected for the feasibility study with this year's downtown project. Council's seen this exhibit quite a few in the past, so I'm not going to go through it a ton, but the streets in gray are those that are complete. Streets in yellow are those that remain, and the ones in red are for this year's project. Again, not to remind folks, but 2005 was the first year that really downtown reconstruction started. It was picked up again in 2011, and so we've been at this for a number of years. Just to give council an idea of where we're at today, we have over 60 blocks that have been finished in downtown. We still expect we're a few years away because now we are developing a new project, which is reconstructing Highway 41 through downtown. And so circulating that into what the city's plan is for redoing streets and things has kind of had us take a pause and revisit for where we're at. But this year's project, again, I think folks are very well aware that street reconstruction started at First Street because of the natural progression of how sewer flows and things happen in through downtown. And as streets have progressed, they have extended to the north. The streets in red for this year really follow the same progression for how we've laid out streets to be reconstructed in downtown. So just to get into it, we've got 5 blocks that are planned for this year's project. Just individually, we have Maple Street from 3rd Street up to 4th, 2 blocks of 4th Street from Beach over to Ash Street. What I would say is Ash Street north of 4th to where it intercepts into the creek, and then a small block of 5th Street. Again, the exhibit shows some of the existing streets and utilities for where things exist today. Again, folks have seen this in the past. Sanitary sewer and the water main are very old. They are nearing 100 years old. And we're committed to upgrading those with this project. Talk about existing street widths. They range on these particular streets anywhere from 40 to 52 feet wide. Sidewalks exist today on all of the streets that are proposed to be reconstructed. There is on-street parking, again, on all of the blocks. Parallel exists for all of the blocks except for the block of Ash Street that is on the east side of Ash Street facing the school. So between 5th and 4th, that is a diagonal parking that's service for most of the student parking for the school.
That's going to stay, correct?
Yes. Yep. Again, I think council's seen this in the past. We have a full upgrade of utilities. This is what we would refer to as our sewer and water exhibit. All new sanitary sewer, all new water main. We're stepping away from projects that we're probably more familiar with, which is moving away from the commercial area and now going back to the residential. So it's nice to get a little upgrade and remembrance of what it is that we do for our at least residential streets. Sanitary sewer is proposed to be an 8-inch PVC pipe or upgraded to a PVC pipe. The water main, again, would be upgraded to a 8-inch PVC pipe as well. One thing we do offer as a part of the project, that is completed, is that we upgrade the residential sewer services from the right-of-way out to the street in the main. We do the same for water services for residents, for where the connections are, which is typically at the right-of-way, and replace that all the way out to the main that's in the street as well. Again, new flavor, all new hydrants, valves, full upgrade of utilities. Storm sewer, where it does exist, which is very, very minimal in all of the streets that have not been reconstructed in downtown. We are proposing to upgrade the streets to improve the drainage, because this is a very unique area where drainage is very flat, especially by the school because of where it falls and the ridge of town and things. So we are proposing to work very closely with the school and with some of the neighbors about fixing some of the drainage that's out there today by adding storm sewer and basically improving the streets. This is the, council has seen this in the past. This is the tree exhibit that we go through on all of our residential streets. Chaska Public Works has gone out, and Brian has done a very nice job in looking at trees that are either diseased or structural. Those trees, again, we would take out as a part of the project. And again, we're talking about boulevard trees. But the other piece to this, as council knows, is that because of how evasive the project is with replacing utilities and things, we do have sewer and water services that impact trees. And so those two, we've done our best guess as to where we feel that those services would be impacting residents, property owners, boulevard trees. The intent is always to work with neighbors throughout the process as we go through kind of what I would say is our standard routine for implementing these downtown projects, is to work with folks, help them understand why the trees are being impacted, or in the best case scenario, saving as many trees as possible. And that really is the intent. We've moved away from going in and essentially taking out all of the trees to how many can we save, and creating more of an overstory and an understory look that isn't so stark with all of the trees going away. We'll talk about individual streets, just so council hears the layouts for each of the streets. Again, Maple Street from between 3rd Street and 4th Street, what I would say is more of our standard residential street layout, has 11-foot parking, or 11-foot drive lanes, 8-foot parking. Again, the sidewalks are proposed to be upgraded from 4.5 to 5 feet. Existing sidewalks in downtown, at least on the residentials, are between 4 to 4.5 feet. The new sidewalks would be 5 feet. 4th Street between Ash Street and Beach. Right now, the design proposes 12-foot lanes with 10-foot parking. This is very similar. This is the exact same design that was used on 2nd Street. So if council remembers that when we did design 2nd Street, or may more relate to how 2nd Street drives today, the intent with this design, as was done with 2nd, is to maintain the footprint of what the existing width of the road is today. And that would essentially be out in front of Southwest Metro School and also St. John's extending to the east. Okay. 4th Street is on the city's state aid route system, and with that being so, it receives a heavier design section. 4th Street would be a 9-ton design. One thing to note with 4th Street is that very similar to 2nd Street, both of those as a part of the master plan were considered as signature streets. And with those signature streets, there were medians that were proposed. Council is aware, and I think doesn't probably need to be remembered, but with implementing the medians on 2nd Street, what was found is there were very, very big impacts to all of the boulevard trees and to the sidewalks and some of the neighbors' property, and how the grading impacts and things were being implemented. Very similar exists along 4th Street for how medians or implementing medians would actually affect those properties. And so, again, because 4th Street is very heavily trafficked, it more of an institutional street where it carries a lot of buses, and we do a lot of snowplow maintenance and things working with the schools. Staff is not proposing that the medians be installed with 4th Street as it gets finished up. Ash Street, just to keep going, Ash Street from 4th up to 5th, 12-foot drive lanes, 8-foot parking on the residential side, parallel, as well as 19-foot diagonal parking along the school. We would maintain the boulevard system, that boulevard sidewalk that parallels along the residential properties. We have been working with the school very closely about how they would like to finish off the look along their property. Ash Street currently has what I would say is partial boulevard, in that the sidewalk is not all tight to the existing back of the sidewalk. Because of how maintenance operations work and things, they have asked that the sidewalk actually be very consistent to what council would see for a look between Cedar Street, between 2nd and 3rd, along Guardian Angels. That would essentially be the same look, where we have the residential on one side and then the diagonal parking on the other. So that is just something to comment that has come out of our conversations with the church. Also, they are looking at along 4th Street where their bus loading zone is and those types of things, working with the city on potentially relocating the boulevard or moving the sidewalk closer because of how busing operations, where they pick kids up and how the buses drop off and those types of things in the morning. So those are things that obviously will be developed as we move along in the process for where the project's at. Ash Street going north, currently we are showing a 13-foot drive lane, 11-foot drive lane, and an 8-foot parking lane. There is parking just one side with this design that is essentially for the two property owners, the one at the intersection of 5th and Ash, and then for the folks who live here at the end. And then just to finish, we do have the one block of 5th, again, going more back to our standard residential design that has 11-foot drive lanes, 8-foot parking, and then sidewalks on both sides. Any questions before we go into the schedule?
Doesn't seem like we're doing a big area. I mean,
No.
That's right.
well, I understand that, but I mean,
Point
we've taken bigger, you know, it's really only,
There's a big reason we're not this year, and I apologize when I stepped out of the room if Matt talked about this, but we had originally talked about doing the area going around Auburn Manor and then in front of St. John's at the same time.
Right.
One of the things that we've been really asked to do as we look at this is to not do both projects at once. The impacts it could have on both of those places, that by doing one side of 4th Street first before we do the other, that it gives them some options to be able to work with. And as we look forward at sort of the streets that we need to do going into future, this seemed to fit as sort of a good chunk, because one of the last places that we have to do is Walnut Street, going up there. And we really are hesitant to do that street before Highway 41 is done, because of the amount of traffic that we could see go on a brand new road during that time period. And then 4th Street in front of the City Square West project, that we really don't want to do that until we do a project over there along with 3rd Street. And so it just sort of, you know, if we wanted to try to accomplish splitting the St. John's and the school apart from each other, this just was sort of a halfway point, you know, for what to do. So it mainly was a logistical issue for St. John's and the co-op.
Because it just seems like, you know, if we went around in front of Auburn Manor there and came out part of the way, because now you're gonna do it all, and it takes all of that, it really clogs that whole area at one time.
Right, part of the issue, again, it's driven by, a lot of this is driven by sewer, because right now, the way the system is set up is that Oak Street, again, I'm pointing on Oak Street, that is where our deep sewer line extends. And so, as we commit to really going north of 3rd Street, any work there drives essentially all of this construction going forward, so.
And that's too much for us to take on.
It was a commitment one way or the other, is to say, you know, do we take on this, you know, basically surrounding St. John's and surrounding the Southwest Metro Co-op School in 1 year, or do we try and separate it?
It just seems like when we do it the next time, we're still gonna handcuff St. John's and whatever, so.
Right.
I guess I'm not seeing, but you guys are the experts, so I'll just let it go with that.
I wouldn't say, I think to us, it was more driven by really just sort of listening to both the groups about what they preferred. And for us to do all that project, because some of it's driven by sewer in one summer and do the.
Well, and I get the part driven about sewer, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But it just seems like it's gonna be a nightmare when we do that, if you tie up 2 blocks around St. John's.
Right.
And that
So
little
part of the issue comes into is what we're trying to do is complete the work along 4th Street when school is out. And so that when school is back in session, that 4th Street is really operating and the buses can just move through.
Okay.
To get Maple, again, you have to include Maple, 2 blocks of 4th, and if we were to include this and this, to me, we would never finish.
Too long of a
School would be
construction
over.
window.
Yes.
There, you answered my questions, I'm good.
We just know, you know, because you're a Catholic doesn't mean you can pick on the Lutherans.
I'm not, I'm trying to help the Lutherans. I'm an advocate for them Lutherans. You hear that, Pastor Snow?
Matt, let's go back to that picture if you
I
would.
sure can.
That photo,
Would you,
the one you were just on.
okay, sure.
That little tiny red stub that goes up,
Yes, ma'am?
4th, is that part of the construction and then, or is that the alley?
Right now, it's a gravel drive.
It's a gravel drive?
Yes, it is what I would say is a hybrid between a parking, it's a hybrid between a driveway and an alley. And so we really need to meet with those folks and better understand just what it is that needs to be accounted for here in terms of, do we provide parking, do we not, is there a turnaround? The other piece to that is that there's snowplow operations involved there.
Right. And then just past that, what does that run into where the red doesn't extend to the yellow?
That's East Creek.
That's the creek?
Yep, that's the
Okay.
creek.
So that part's still in discussion?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to really shore that up with what actually gets built.
The other part we should point out is that we did look at potentially going down onto, I don't know if that's considered Beach or Stoughton, down on the very right hand where his arrow is there. And if you remember, there's a bridge that's there. And that's one that we actually did seek dollars from the state bridge fund. And they just don't have the money right now. If they would have had the money right now, we probably would have been proposing to actually go up and do that section of the project too. Our hope is that, you know, the bridges are sort of part of the discussion that Senator Jensen talked about. You know, this is a bonding year for them, and bridges have been a high priority, that they put some more dollars into that account, because that bridge in the short term is gonna need to get replaced.
Yes,
Is that one you just throw a box culvert in and call it a day?
That's what's being proposed, or will be proposed, yeah.
But I mean, because so then it's no longer really a bridge.
Well, it's still
Are they still considered
still
bridges?
considered a bridge, but it.
And we can access dollars then to be able to
pay for
replace
it.
that then.
But it's really not a span anymore because
Pretty
it's,
minimal, so.
Right. It's just meets the MnDOT criteria for what a bridge truly is.
the only other question I would have, can you go back to that 4th Street where you had the trees and everything? I mean,
Sure.
Nope, keep going. That one you had a real that one.
Sure.
Is there a thought of, like, in front of the co-op school, to actually put a drop-in where the buses, you know, it's proposing here that there's a 7'5" boulevard and then the sidewalk? And you know how, I mean, you just have it in so it's a little wider where the buses are really further off the road instead of right against the cars? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, well, again, if you're,
I mean, I don't know if that'll always be the co-op, but that's
Right.
something you can,
we could look at that.
I
and
mean,
see.
I'm just throwing that out there because I just know that, you know, when you have snow and then you have the buses and you have that there, you know, the buses start creeping out to the drive lane and it just makes it harder. And if, you know, I don't know if the boulevard's really necessary there, is because it's kind of an incident. I don't see that, you know, that was condemned when I was going to high school. And it's still going strong and it ain't going anywhere, but that's what I'm wondering is.
So you're saying just pushing the boulevard back to
Just push,
that
and actually
yeah.
make that a little bus drop in, or, and then in when there's events there in the evening, it's just the cars are off the road.
Yeah, we can look at that. I think for sure that the request has come from them for, this is the VOTEC piece, so where my cursor's at here. They've asked that at a minimum, we look at taking out the boulevard along this section all the way out to where it intercepts where we have the bump out, simply because they see most of their buses actually coming this direction with
Yep.
headlights moving to the east.
Because they load it, but I just, like I said, I just know that when you drive that, when their buses are there, it's tight to the drive lane, and then you're pushing people out over the center lane.
That's sort of what you're saying though, is to just push that boulevard back to
Get
the
rid of the
sidewalk.
boulevard, you know, I mean, maybe not all of it, but once you start narrowing up, you can't get anything to grow there, you know, you might, I don't know, I just,
Might as well eliminate it, go right to the sidewalk.
you know, even if they put in the permeable pavers or something, so it breaks it up so it doesn't all look goofy, I don't know.
Yeah, no, we can look at, I mean, the conventional width for parking like we have in residential is 8 feet. I mean, but again, we've got 10-foot parking that would typically support a bus, but again, we can look at, you know, increasing that width but.
And again, I'll go back to is that there's a lot of people there's a lot of kids that drive and they park across the street and they're cutting through the buses, and there's not a lot of room for people driving there to really be able to react, and this might just be able to give you a little more room.
Okay.
And you can put all the crosswalks in the world, the kids are gonna go the shortest direction to the car, which is through the buses and right through the middle of the block. But, I don't know, like I said, it's just my nickel on that, but
Okay.
if it's something that
We can look at that.
if it's something you think that's feasible and will work, you know, great, if not. But I don't wanna look at it afterwards and say, I wish we would've.
Okay.
Because I think now it's probably a minor thing, other than a little more, you know, blacktop or whatever we decide, but maybe you break it up, I don't know.
Let me do some I'll do some work on
Yeah,
that.
don't go
and
crazy, but
come up
just see
with
if
some
it's
ideas.
something makes sense.
All right, we'll just touch quickly on the project schedule. So council is aware, there's 2 actions on for tonight. One is for council to accept the feasibility study, and the other is to schedule the public improvement hearing. This really sets the process in motion for folks to go out and staff to go out and meet with the neighborhood, meet with the residents, and start to introduce the project and those types of things. We would have again, the public improvement hearing, March 5th, so it'd be a month from tonight, where council would see this back. At that meeting, basically, the process would be is to authorize the project or do not, and then to schedule the assessment hearing. Just so council is aware, staff would plan to show all the assessments and things that are proposed for the project, which I'll be bringing up here just shortly, when we do meet with the neighbors and things, so.
You have not met with neighbors at this point?
We've not.
And did you get back to Mr. Dixon on that question that I got?
I plan on Wednesday, yes.
Oh, you haven't
He
yet?
has been given, I've sent him a letter and things, so.
Oh,
I'm
you
just
did talk to him,
planning
so,
on going with him.
so we've gotten back to
Yep.
it? Okay, thank you.
Right now, again, just to give council an idea, the project is set for a May award. And so using the schedule that we're on right now really sets us to have that project awarded in May, and then to really turn it around before, potentially some work before school started, and then to close 4th Street. June 7th is the last day of school. And so have the 4th Street work closed June 7th and have it reopen again back before school is open. There will be other work scheduled and things, but we would set a completion date of late September, early October for this year for finishing things up. And we always talk about the costs. Again, this year's project, $2,156,325. That is the estimated total project cost for these 5 blocks. That accounts for all the street improvements, storm sewer, water main, water services, sanitary sewer, and sewer service improvements. As I mentioned before, there are assessments that are proposed for this year's project. And I'll zoom in just so council is aware what's being shown, at least to the residents. There is a $7,500 assessment that has been used for since this process really started in downtown. That $7,500 you can see is what is proposed for all of the residential properties. In 2016, as a part of when we did go through the 2nd Street project, we went through and did, again, a benefit consultation analysis, which sets the levels for what the city levies on for special assessments with downtown. And coming back, the results did show that the $7,500 is held true, and that as we go through the lease this year's project and things, that would be the appropriate assessment for the residential properties. Okay?
So we can assess the school on this stuff then?
Yes.
Yes.
And church, I mean, that will be something that comes in the future.
Yeah.
Guardian Angels went through that when we went through that project.
Yeah.
What's that?
There are
Go
two
to the Lutherans for a loan. Until they get their assessment, then they'll come over and get it from us again.
Well, one quick note on this. One of the challenges that we end up running into on projects is that in order to finance them through a 429 process, you have to have at least 20% of the costs actually assessed. And that's a challenge on a project like this. So if you look at the total project cost of, was it 2.4, 2.5 million?
2.1.
2.1 million. And you look at the assessments that we have on here, it's only like 8% of the entire project. And so you can't even really come close to meeting that threshold to be able to finance it. So one of the things you'll see us doing this year is that we're only going to be looking at financing through a 429 process for just the street improvements, and then pulling the utility improvements out and financing those separate with utility bonds that we'll need to sell for the upgrades we have to 41 when the state does their project, and also with Bavaria Downs, all the trunk water work that we're gonna be doing up there. So I only point it out because there's been lots of discussion in the legislature about allowing cities to set up special improvement districts and things like that to be able to handle street reconstruction, because for a lot of cities, this is a big issue that they can't, the assessments that you can have on properties just can't get up to the amount that you need to be able to sustain financing on the project. And so we've been able to find ways to sort of navigate our way through this, but it is not an easy thing to, based on how the financing rules are sort of set up now.
One last point. There is one assessment that is proposed to be credited with this project. The property that's at the corner of 4th and Beach. That property did have a previous assessment for improvements that were done when the courthouse was upgraded. There were improvements that were done to the street, and those assessments were levied back to the properties. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties that front Beach. Those were the assessments that were the properties that were assessed with the improvements to the government center.
So Shallow House they don't front Beach, they front 4th.
They are addressed off of, I believe they're addressed off of, yes, they're addressed off of 4th. But they were assessed as a part of the 5th Street, or the Beach Street.
Beach Street, okay.
So as part of our policy, basically every house has one full street assessment and one indirect street assessment associated with it. And so since they had a portion of that assessment, the $7,500 total going on to 5th Street, then they'd only have to pay the remaining amount for 4th Street.
So that's just something to note.
So Mr. Dixon will be done then when they go to the north on
Correct.
Beach, is that right? Okay.
Yep.
But didn't, he was already, I believe he was already assessed, so he might fall into that.
Wow.
No? Well, whatever. I know you guys looked into it, I just got the call.
Yes, I will
Yeah.
talk to Steve on. Yep.
Matt, if I may, it's not related to this, but looking at the map, I'm reminded I've had a few calls, people up on 6th Street wanting to know when their lucky turn is coming. Can you give me a rough idea?
Yeah, so right now, again, like Matt had said, the sewer, the driving force behind 6th Street and doing work north of Beach is kind of integrated with the timing for when the bridge happens. But again, our plan really right now shows that we are done in the next 4 years.
Okay.
And how we get to that is going to be some music in motion, because we've got 2 bridges to replace and we've got a state highway.
Okay.
That,
So I know that street is in pretty tough shape up there,
Yeah,
obviously.
it is.
Okay, thank you.
All them along there. Where's the second bridge?
Where the creek comes across 6th there, and then where it crosses over a beach.
Oh, back there, yep.
It's the, call it a bridge. It may be a porch.
That thing was bad 40 years ago.
It's
Thank God there's hardly any
worse
traffic. Hardly any traffic back there.
But you do have an old piece of rail coming across 6th Street from the old original tracks that went through way back when, so.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right, well,
More progress. This is good.
over here.
Gotta go.
So basically, we're approving the feasibility and the public improvement hearing for March 5th.
You would make a motion to approve the feasibility report, and then a motion to,
Oh, they're separate.
I believe so.
Lukey?
I'd love to tell you about my computer died, so.
You have it.
Make
Probably all
it's never wrong to do them each separate.
I would do them separate.
So we're gonna have
All
to
right,
number.
so I'd be looking at adopting the resolution first, to make sure that we're gonna proceed forward. So I'd be looking for a motion for,
Motion, Mr. Mayor?
so I have a motion by Councilmember Bo,
Second.
second by Councilmember Schultz, adopting resolution 2018-13, accepting the feasibility report for the 2018 street reconstruction. Discussion.
Glad to see more progress, like we said.
Step closer to getting it done?
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Exactly.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries. Now I'd be looking for a motion for scheduling the public hearing on that feasibility report for March 5th, 2018, 7 o'clock in the city council chambers.
So
So
moved.
moved. Oh,
Motion by Councilmember Schultz, my right ear must be
Second by-
better,
yeah.
second by Councilmember Geisler.
said it right.
Approving the public hearing for March 5th, 2018, Chaska City Council Chambers at 7 o'clock. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moves us on to item number 11, City Commission appointments, Planning Commission, Human Rights, and Rec. So, we, for everyone out there, and I don't know if Matt's gonna speak here, but we had interviews earlier tonight, most all of them. One was unable to make it. So we'd be looking at appointing one person to the Planning Commission, 2 full-time human rights and 2 alternates, and Park Board, 4 park members, and 1 alternative. So that is correct, that one of the park would be a full-time?
Yes.
And 1 would be alternative?
Yeah, I did check into that before the meeting, that's the case.
What do we want to do, one at a time, one
Well,
group at a time? I should
one
say?
group at a time, I think is what we should do. And before we start again, I just want to reach out and say thank you to everyone that, you know, has stepped forward and willing to be interviewed and be part of our commissions. I think it's very important. I think it's a great community outreach for anyone that's interested in being part of the community. And they just really help us and save us tons and tons of time by their stuff that they do. So again, I just want to say thank you to everyone that has, and obviously our 4 that hit term limits that have left, Jean Personius and Tom Skoogman and Tanya Kim and Judy Gorsh. So thank you to those guys as they leave our boards. So with that, I'd be entertaining a motion, Mr.
All right.
Cole.
Well, let's see. I say let's start with the Human Rights Commission, and I would make a motion to nominate Kaylee Haga and Judy Dunbar as a regular, and Sarah Carlson and Lisa White as alternates for that group or that body.
Okay, so I have a motion.
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Councilmember Geisler, appointing Susan Carlson. Nope, sorry. Is it Kaylee Hagna? Kaylee? Kaylee.
Did she say Kaylee?
She said Kaylee, I think, right?
Okay.
Haga and Lisa White, or Judy Dunbar as regular members, and Sarah Carlson and Lisa White as the alternates.
Yes, that is correct.
Discussion.
As you say, thank you for, your interest. It's a great experience, and we're glad to have you.
Yep. For 9 years.
Yep.
You're ours.
Happy to see a full team this time, yeah. It's great.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries. What's next? Let's go, Park Board.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to nominate David Downs, Josh Ayers, and David Roan back to their incumbent seats as full functioning members, as well as Jason Branch. And then also nominating Mike Flaherty Wilcox as an alternate.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilmember Schultz, second by Councilmember Bo. Downs, Ives, Roan, and Branch as full members, and Flaherty Wilcox as the alternate to the Park Board.
Yes, sir.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. And that moves us to planning. And it would be just, Mike, is it Wang? I don't know if I
Wong.
say it. Wong?
Wong.
Wong, Mike Wong. And then we'll have to interview Mr. Kelly at another time.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion that we appoint Mike Hong, incumbent, back to the planning commission, and interview Charles Kelly, an incumbent.
Just leave it as Mike. I think
Okay.
we're good.
That's fine.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Geisler,
I'll second that.
second by Councilmember Bo, appointing Mike to the Planning Commission. Discussion. Matt, I'm going to ask you, it says 4 openings. Are we short people for planning?
Yes.
I don't know that that's ever happened. Yeah.
It just dawned on me now.
Usually we have just the opposite problem is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll still be, so we'll get Charles set up to come back in, but we'll still be short 1 full seat and 1 alternate?
No, with Charles, if Charles gets reappointed, we have 2 alternates open.
Okay, all right.
So, kind of my comment to Matt earlier was, you know, what the possibility would be to reach out to, because we've had some qualified candidates in the past that
They were
weren't
yeah.
selected, and
Yep.
so
Yeah.
the possibility of maybe reaching back
And
to some of those people.
I'm going to put it out there. It
And
just
also,
dawned on
I think we had some during the year contact us that might not have.
Okay.
Saw the
Didn't
announcement
Yeah,
or whatever.
so, we'll have to look and see if we had got any during this year.
Okay.
But those would be another list of people that.
Sure.
That's so rare to have openings.
I know.
And usually
It
we're
is.
fighting them off, so, but it just dawned on me. So if there's anyone out there that's interested in the planning commission, we still do have a couple openings. Even though as we talk about an alternate and basically, you can still come to all the meetings, and if someone's not there, then you'd be the voting member for that particular night, but if everyone's there, you'd be just there, as
Still partake in
part
all
of
the
the
discussions.
part of the commission, you just wouldn't be voting
Yep.
as a voting member, so.
Yeah, the discussion part's just as important
Right.
too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely,
Insight,
right.
discussion.
Right. So, and I think we've had pretty good luck about the alternates always being there.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that we're always getting a full, but, so, if anyone's interested in planning commission, they should contact, or go to the website.
Contact Kevin or me
Kev-
or Nate.
Kevin
or
Ringwald,
Denise.
Ringwald, or,
Denise.
the website would probably have something on about it, so. Putting that out there, and we'll do some looking as well, so. All right, we have a motion and second to put Mike, back in his spot. That doesn't sound right. Putting Mike back on the planning commission, reappointing Mike to the planning commission.
For his
There we go.
final,
For his final 3-year
term,
term,
yes.
yeah. So, all right, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries. And we are on to bills. Anyone have a question regarding bill? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
so moved.
Motion by Councilmember Bo.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Schultz. To pay the bills. Discussion. Hearing none, Nate, will you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Schultz,
Yes.
Councilmember Bo,
Yes.
Councilmember Geisler,
Yes.
Mayor Winchell.
Yes. All right, other business. Let's start with Councilmember Geisler.
Actually, I have nothing new this time.
Nothing, okay.
Well,
That
pass
was
it on to
easy.
the next one.
Mr. Schultz.
Nothing either.
Wow, that's good, because I got a long list.
Good.
Here we go.
Yeah, my shot now. Mr. Bull, I want to hear this. I got nothing.
I'm sorry, I've got something.
Oh, that's
And that is, it's February, we've got enough ice, so ice fishing contest for the Chaska Fire Department is next Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m.
This Saturday.
This Saturday.
Yes, I'm sorry, this coming Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. And unlike past years where we've had to move the festivities indoors, we should have plenty of ice, and it should be a lot of fun, so.
But there's still fun indoors too.
Absolutely, a lot of activities going on, it's a
I don't
fun
know
time.
if all those activities will be indoor.
Not all of them?
No, because that was kind of the,
Tim said there's gonna be quite a bit. that they're
okay,
gonna
and I'm
do.
not sure, we've had good luck with it, that very well could still happen,
Yep.
so. So we'll just have to see.
But it's a lot of fun and a great way to support your local fire department.
I like
so.
the prize I got last year.
That's right.
It was awesome.
That's it?
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Wow, okay, awesome. How about Kevin?
I'm good.
Nate?
Nothing.
Wow.
Follow the trend.
How about you there, Slick?
Just a couple of notes here. First of all, we do have our employee recognition years of service on Wednesday morning. If anybody can come at 7:30 over at the event center. Let's see here. There is a transportation summit that Southwest Transit's putting on February 16th. That's also at 7:30 a.m. over at the event center, and so it's going to be just generally talk about transit and transportation in the area. On the 27th, so that's, we're coinciding this with our staff meeting, and I had sent the email out before. We're going to be doing an emergency management training, and we're highly encouraging, we're having all of our department heads and highly encouraging council to come. Tim Wiebe, our fire chief, is going through the process now of sort of ramping up to a tabletop exercise to talk about, you know, what would we do if there's a major ice storm or tornado or those things, and what's our roles and responsibilities, and we're kicking it off. My dad was county administrator in Nicollet County during the St. Peter tornado in 1998, so having him come and give a presentation to us about some of the things that went well and some of the things that didn't go so good. It's just as beneficial to learn from the things that don't go well as that do.
Sure.
So
important.
starting out with almost like a more of just learning from a past experience on that, and that'll lead into future sessions. So I'll send out an email on that again. And then I put in the staff report, or bi-weekly report this week. We are having the Urban Land Institute come on the evening of Wednesday, February 28th. That's going to be from 6:30 to 8:30 up at the lodge at the community center. And this is really this is a workshop that the Urban Land Institute has put on in many communities across the state that really brings experts in from the development field to, they take a look at your demographics and some of the things that they see from an outside perspective, and be able to come in and sort of share with you ways that you can look at your community, just given sort of where you're at in development and demographics, and have sort of an outside perspective to get us to think, you know, as we're going through City Square West or our comp plan amendment, or even just our community building out in Southwest Chaska, some of the things that we might want to take into consideration, anywhere from how do we serve our most vulnerable populations in our community, to how do we, you know, if there's certain things that we want to accomplish from a commercial perspective in the community, how do we work towards achieving some of those. So it's, again, something they've done in many other communities, and the communities I've talked to that have gone through have really felt that it was very beneficial. Kevin's on the ULI board, so he did a good job of getting them interested in coming down to Chaska, so highly encourage people to come on the 28th for that.
That is at the lodge.
The lodge.
That's it, yep. And I think, I'm trying to remember sort of the group of people that are participating, or you're sending invitations out to. So is the
Planning Commission and City Council and department heads are the primary. We have a couple other people that are going to attend that have some interest, but really that's the discussion, is Planning Commission, City Council, and staff, department head level.
So it's really a development-driven sort of discussion.
The public can come and sit and listen if they choose?
Yeah, it's just trying to focus on the decision makers in that piece, but if people are interested, that would be fine.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
That's all I have.
Oh, that was a lot.
Oh, the chamber has a legislative breakfast too on the 23rd of February. That's over at the Country Inn at Chanhassen. So this is when they bring together our local legislatures and really talk about the upcoming legislative session, and you know, looking at it from the business perspective, things that they might be looking at. But according to Senator Jensen, they won't be doing anything this year. So maybe
He tells you the truth.
yeah, oh
He
yeah,
does.
and I mean
He does.
he's sort of on base. I mean, there's really that split that's occurring up there, that it may be very difficult for them to get things done this year. So
if you want me to register you for that, just send me an email.
And that was
Get
February
Legislative?
23rd?
For the legislative breakfast.
Okay.
I'm in.
What date was it?
February 23rd.
Yeah. I think I already did.
Get that, I have to
Nate, right?
register for those.
I think I already sent.
What day of the week is
I
that?
already sent
Friday.
you the
Friday.
notification.
Friday morning.
May have, yeah. I'll double check to be sure.
All right. Lukey, how about over there? Matt?
Just one item. Hot off the press.
Oh,
Doesn't happen very often that I actually have something to say, because we have council does know the Hawk system that's out at 61. Right now, the schedule is to activate the Hawk signal, pedestrian signal, next Thursday, tentatively. So unfortunately, we couldn't get it for the ice fishing contest, but it's on for next Thursday, and hope to have everything activated and running by late next week.
So they have to put up the other arm yet? Because I was just gonna, I had that in here for the last council meeting about that being delayed, but or they got the pipe thawed out?
So actually, the issue was there was a manufacturing issue with one of the mast arms itself.
It was pointing the wrong direction.
oops.
Oh, a little problem like that?
The signal heads would have been on the opposing side of
I was
traffic.
wondering why they were all here and everything. Oh, that makes sense.
So,
All right.
we took it down real quick.
You can't make that stuff up.
So now, we've now taught Matt the difference between left and right.
One note on that, though, I know Matt and Aaron are actually working on getting informational video out for people on how to use the Hawk system, because it is a little different, because there'll be a solid red light as people cross across the road, but it turns into a blinking red light at certain points, so there are times when people can go.
So you got a timer going?
Yep, and so it's gonna give people a little tutorial. We'll probably also reach out to the Herald too, if they end up doing an article, to get people directed to this video so they can sort of see how it works. But it is a full stop light, so I mean, it's a enforceable stop light that stops traffic, so.
Cool.
Need to get it
Great.
to school too,
Yeah.
for the kids that are driving up and down.
All right, anything else over there? All right. I got a couple things. We had our first task force meeting for
City Square West.
City Square West, thank you. So that has kicked off. We've got, what, 3 more planned?
Yes.
Yeah.
3 more planned in the next 3 months?
3 months.
So just want people to know that that is starting to happen. We've talked about it a bunch, but action is taking place. The other thing, I've gotten 2 anonymous letters regarding stoplights on Highway 41 and why we're gonna fix them. They're so stupid. And if you're sending the letters, please sign them so we can get back and explain to you what's going on, but I have no access to be able, and I've gotten 2, and I'm pretty certain it's the same person. But please just email me, call me, I don't care, all my information's out there. And I'd be more than happy to sit down and explain to you about the lights and what's going on with them, so. But sending an anonymous letter is, you may as well send nothing, because I have no way to respond to you, and I generally won't even bring them up, but it's just the fact that I've gotten 2 letters from the same person, so I just want them to know that it's a state of Minnesota's stoplights, they're not ours, and they're really, that's all governed, and you gotta have them here, or you'd never get on Highway 41, so, but I just wanted to touch on that again. I got in here about thanks everyone that signed up for commissions. That's such an important thing for us. Another thing I wanted to talk about is, after we kind of had a big snow event, obviously why we didn't have our last meeting, but I was really proud of our residents as I drove around and saw how many of them cleaned out the hydrants for us. I think that is absolutely amazing. If somebody puts out and something on Facebook about it, talk about it, but I am truly amazed, and I want to thank every resident that goes out and makes sure that the hydrants, and I'm sure the fire department is more than tickled to see you do that if they have to use them. The chances are slim that they have to use them, but boy, if they need them, and they need them now, that saves a lot of valuable time in the right and that's a particular time.
Well, and the way to look at it, it's a lot more valuable for you as the homeowner. because
Absolutely.
It,
I mean,
it boils down to time.
Waste their time having
Yep.
to dig us.
But,
Well, the home
and
you
I
save
even
may be
noticed
your
people
own.
that went out to hydrants
By
that
doing
there's
it.
really not by a house. So, like I said, I mean, that's kind of one of those things that makes us a community that, you know, people that really don't care about their community could care less about a hydrant. And I just think that that's really neat, and I wanted to mention that. And there was in there another one about, just says Officer Kyle, I assume that's Kyle Gibbons. Stopped and helped a resident that was stuck trying to get in their driveway, and he got out and helped push. And they just thought that that was pretty cool, that one of our police officers stopped and helped them. And, you know, again, that's one of those things that still make us, you still have that small town feel where other cities would just blinders up and drive by. And
Yes, Scott gave us statistics from that night. There was a large number of vehicle assists that night. And was sort of, at least in our neighborhood, and I assume it was sort of happening all over the city that night, is that you saw the police out and neighbors out. And I mean, our neighborhood, we went and dug the UPS guy out. I mean, it was really sort of a neat sort of neighborhood bonding experience to go out and sort of help people. But you just saw that all over the community.
At our intersection on Highwood and White Oak, there were 3 people stuck in the intersection. So nobody could have moved if the neighbors hadn't come out with snow shovels. And it was several people who came and helped dig them out enough to get them and push them.
Well,
to
we
get them
haven't
moving.
seen snow like that in a lot
No.
of years,
Yeah,
and people aren't used to it.
Long time.
And then when the plows put it at the end of the driveways, these small cars, they go into it and they just sit there and teeter and the wheels are spinning and they're not going anywhere, so.
Yeah. True.
But, and it was so hard, I mean, it was kind of wet and heavy, you just got stuck on it, so. But anyways, I just thought that, like, again, these are all things that I had, from our last meeting. And again, you know, there's a lot out there about, we approved the Aldi's and Chipotle. Again, what was it, we don't have that catalog to pick who we get to,
Yeah, we
who
didn't get
gets to
that
come
catalog,
here.
yeah.
I wish we could, and, you know, the market that's out there really drives the businesses that come. And I guess I look at the fact that businesses are still willing to come into the community. That tells me a lot that things are going good. But we don't always get to pick who those people are, unfortunately. So, sorry about that, but that is just the reality of sometimes stuff that happens. The Hawk system is done. Guardian Angels Beef and Sausage Dinner is this Sunday. It's a great dinner if you're interested in coming down. There's takeouts if you don't want to stand in line or sit there and eat. So, good deal. Is it, do you know, $12 for dinner?
11 or 12, yeah, something like that.
Sure, 11 or 12.
You know, the thing I think a lot of new residents don't realize is that the people down at Guardian Angels make the sausage.
Yeah, everything's made. The sausage is
It
like,
is
this
fabulous
week, this
sausage.
week we'll go and start, cutting up the meat, and then another day you come and you mix it and make it. Then then that afternoon it's smoked, and, yeah, it's an interesting process since I
What
got.
are the hours on that?
11 to 1.
Yeah, 11 to 1.
Yeah.
11 to 1, so. Fishing contests, we
Oh.
talked about, always, like I
On
said.
that same note, if I may, Mr.
Yep.
Mayor, we also have the first fish fry coming up soon. I saw that the other day.
Yeah, Lent starts the Wednesday after, and the first GA fish fry is the following Friday right away, so. And then there was a football game yesterday, I heard. I think Minnesota and Minneapolis showed itself well. I think everything went off. I have not heard one hitch about anything. I'm sure there had to be a glitch here and there, but for the most part, I think people from California or Miami had to be bamboozled Saturday when, you know, it's a nice, it was kind of that hallmark snow, and here's this guy down there doing flips 100 feet in the air with a
Yeah,
snowmobile. And I mean, just the stuff that they had to see that you're not used to seeing, that we just take for granted. It's, oh yeah, no big deal. So I think that was pretty cool. I kind of listened to the comments. All the comments really seemed favorable, that everybody was so helpful and stuff like that. And I even saw one where it was a Philadelphia reporter went around looking for Vikings people and had a Philadelphia person with the dog mask on and say, whatever you want to tell them, you just go right ahead. And everyone says, well,
Good
you know,
luck.
we lost and good luck. And yeah, and it was, and he finally goes, you Minnesota people are the nicest fans ever.
Minnesota.
And I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe we should bite them once, but I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that was.
Huh?
As opposed to the Philadelphia ones.
Not,
And
not
even
so,
they did it again after they won.
Well, and that's just it. I mean,
Tore
they
up the town.
destroyed their town. It's just like,
Lit cars on
I don't-
fire for a football win?
I mean, they
Oh
were
my
standing on a
God.
canopy and enough that they collapsed.
collapsed on, yeah.
They even greased the poles and that didn't stop them.
I
We
mean,
didn't
that's-
grease any poles in Minnesota
But,
for this game.
yeah,
It
that,
was awesome.
that is, I don't know, that's another deal.
And-
For someone else to solve.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, not only did the Twin Cities in Minnesota look good, but Chaska itself, the curling center, was booked by a couple of big corporate events
I
nationwide.
never got down there. Did they have it all day Saturday and Sunday?
No, it's all day Saturday.
Saturday, I
Well,
think.
Saturday afternoon, FedEx had it, and then Saturday evening, Microsoft had it. And I didn't get down to see it, but Jeff was showing me that the planners, the party planners for Microsoft actually had a projector camera that projected from across the parking lot onto the roof of the curling center, or of the event center,
yeah.
that said Microsoft across the whole.
Across
Did
on the
anybody get
roof.
pictures of it? That would-
I'm assuming he did. We
Jeff
were gonna
did. I
drive
saw it
down
on
and
his
check it
phone.
out, but
Hey.
we were afraid if we got pictures, we'd get enforced by the sign ordinance. people.
It's not a fest.
Then we also had curling members on CCO rooftop.
That's right.
I didn't see that, but I heard
Jeff
they
was
were
on
up there.
there,
so.
yeah.
That was
No,
really
it wasn't Jeff, it was Derek and,
Oh,
Jeff?
Jeff,
Susan,
Derek
Derek.
too, yeah.
but I saw, it was
But
Derek
Derek as
and
well,
Susan.
though, yeah.
Meredith.
Okay.
But
They had snow golfing at Hazeltine.
Yes,
I
there
saw
was.
that,
Yep, I
commercial.
saw that too.
Flaherty
I didn't know about-
and who was he?
Matt Kuchar
Matt
Kuchar, yeah.
and his kids.
They filmed that a couple Thursdays ago, because I know we had Rotary that day, and they were out there with a film crew. So.
Okay, wow.
It's kind of cool because they were hitting white balls first, and then pretty soon they pull up fluorescent balls, you know, and they're hitting those. It was
Yeah, that
cool
was, it
commercial.
was, but it was still Hazeltine and Minneapolis, you know.
Oh,
Still haven't got that right.
20 miles.
I missed it, but I was reminded of that by someone.
I did place a comment on that. Would you please say Chaska instead of 20 miles from Minneapolis?
it is.
Please.
Minneapolis.
But, yeah, and I thought that Prince tribute really came out neat when they did that.
Did,
I finally figured out how they did that was all just graphically done. I thought, oh, in the world, but it was,
Lighting up downtown. all
that
purple.
was just that was just a picture of it that they were able to do that.
Okay.
That was still pretty cool. I
was
don't
pretty
care how it was done. I thought that was pretty awesome, so.
Yeah, I thought the city's area and the state represented themselves well. It was kind of, I don't know, felt to me like a proud moment.
Yeah, yeah.
The amount of volunteers
Proud to
was
be.
unbelievable. And they were wonderful.
You know, could only work a couple hour shift out there.
Jimmy
Oh,
Fallon.
there he is.
There you go, see?
That's right, I forgot about that. So, all right, that is, I think, everything I had on my list.
You did have a good list, didn't you?
Well, it's 2 weeks worth. Heck.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, last call.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Schultz, second by Councilmember Bo to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned, and we'll see you in 2 weeks, right? No.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. We have President's Day in the middle
Oh,
of that.
that's
so
right.
It'll be the last Monday in February.
25th, yeah, it's President's Day.